just the focus and the fact that none of my favorite characters are present, it's just not up to my preference. Welcome back to my channel, House of the Dragon fans. We have arrived at the penultimate episode of the season. It's time to discuss the Green Council, as we've been doing every week as soon as episodes drop. We gather right here and talk all the episodes and all the spoilers, and this week there's no time jump. In fact, the episode begins the morning after Viserys' confession to the Queen in regards to the dream of Aegon the Conqueror, which Alicent has interpreted as meaning their son Aegon should be king to save all of Westeros. This is definitely the most small-scale episode of the season thus far, or at least the most one-sided. It's the one that solely focused on the Hightower side of the Targaryen lineage. There's no Rhaenyra, there's no Daemon, there's no Velaryons really apart from Rhaenys, who's basically a hostage throughout most of this episode. And while this is such a singularly focused episode on the Hightowers, with a story that takes place just in the span of 2 days, it is nevertheless an eventful episode with a ton of dynamic power shifts clashing from the very beginning, one major set piece, and major consequences for the finale next week. Viserys is dead, and we quickly learn, much to Alicent's shock, that part of the small council, including her father, have been conspiring to make Aegon king and murder Rhaenyra, Daemon, and their children in this eventuality, something that Alicent is very against, which I love to see, because it does not compromise this character. She still holds true to the love she had for Viserys and to her beliefs of decency and honor, something that comes into question in that meeting with the small council and through this episode as it makes her and her father clash. And this is where the episode divides itself. If you've been following the weekly reviews for House of Dragon, we always divide these up in character chapters, but this week we're going to divide it into Otto Hightower story and in Alicent Hightower story. Why do father and daughter clash? Because while both wish to find the disappeared Prince Aegon, Otto Hightower wishes to begin his grandson's name with the official order to murder Rhaenyra and her children. But Alicent wishes not, in the stead of Viserys the Peaceful, to taint the entire Targaryen lineage, much less her own son, with murder as soon as he assumes the throne. And so begins the chase for Aegon Targaryen through most of this episode. On one side, Otto Hightower orders twin knights Eric and Arik Cargill to find him and bring him to him and him alone, and Alicent trusts Sir Criston and her own son Aemon Targaryen to find the prince before they do. It's a great story structure that creates tension amidst this family and continues the self-destruction theme that has been present through the entire season and the Targaryen lineage, fulfilling the prophecy of Jaehaerys Targaryen himself. This episode, more than any other, has validated the side of the internet that has accused Otto Hightower of being this series' Littlefinger throughout the season. Something that I've entirely disagreed with, because I just found this character to be fearful, never self-serving, believing his intentions and methods righteous as to better serve the realm. Just happened that it also better served this family. But in this episode, the dude plays dirty, even against his own daughter, having been conspiring for who knows how long to murder Rhaenyra, even using the little birds and worms through Flea Bottom and the entire city, meeting with the White Worm and demanding from the very beginning that no one discovers that Viserys has died, imprisoning all the maids and all the servants in the Red Keep so they don't escape and spread the information. He just uses every method and strategy available to him in this episode, but in a way that I never felt compromised the character. This man has just come to this moment of desperation where he feels trapped. Now is the moment to act on what he has always believed. This is exactly what Otto has been preaching throughout the season. He's just come to this moment where he sees no other way to act upon, precisely because his daughter is very much against him, in a way that also never compromises the integrity of Alicent's character. And Olivia Cook once more crushes it in this episode, continuing that theme of being ruled by fear in her actions, but beginning to trust as well. As we saw last week, Alicent was ready to make amends with Rhaenyra, and she keeps true to that in this episode. She does not wish to betray Viserys' wishes. She just feels trapped and powerless, like she has been throughout her whole life, and because her father has put her in this position. There's this great confrontation between the two where Alicent very much resents her father because she has always been a pawn throughout her entire life, a pawn for him to use and come to this position of power, where he now is ordering the murder of the princess in waiting and Alicent's childhood friend, something that he also accuses his daughter of being conflicted about her feelings towards Rhaenyra. This is where I feel the not-so-platonic love Rhaenyra shared with Alicent could have served the story if it had been explored through this season. I don't think it takes away from this moment. It could have just made it more powerful than it already is. Alicent throughout this episode is very much the mirror image of her father. She's playing a fair game. She is striking the right balance between doing what she wants to do for the betterment of her children, for what she believes was Viserys' wish, but also doesn't betray the point in her character journey she arrived at last week, even trusting Sir Criston and Aemon to find Aegon himself. And we have these conversations between the two as they search for the older brother that Aemon believes he should be king. No one really believes Aegon is fit, but it's just what Alicent believes is true. It's just what Otto believes to be better for the realm and for his family, because this is his grandson after all. And Aemon uses the disappearance and search for his brother to try and boost his own ego, see if he can find some allies that would make him king instead of Aegon. I am really a big fan of how Alicent plays the Game of Thrones with her father, going to this low place where she begs one of her subjects, Rhaenys Targaryen, to ally herself with her in exchange for Driftmark for her daughters and for the Valyrian lineage of the future. But Rhaenys doesn't concede. She even pleads to Alicent to take the power for herself, stop being a chess piece in someone else's board, which is exactly what Alicent is conflicted with when discussing how to act, the methods being used by her father. It's such a powerful moment between these two, who really are two mothers who just want to keep their families safe. That's what they've been chasing throughout this entire season, and Eve Best gives her best performance in this episode. Alicent's resolve and smarts are even proved stronger when Sir Larys, who earlier on had a conversation with Sir Otto, is revealed to be working for Alicent still. For all the dirty games this dude plays, he is loyal to a fault to the Queen, giving her all the information about the spies Otto is using, about her maid being one of the spies, about the meeting with the White Worm, and the location of Aegon. And we also learned that Sir Larys has a foot fetish. He takes it as payment for the information he gives to Alicent. It was so weird when she started taking the socks off, and I'm like, okay, she's getting comfortable. Oh no! That dude's jerking off. I just never expected, after 9 seasons, almost 9 seasons, of the world of Westeros, to find the weirdest thing about this franchise. All these pieces just converge together very nicely, and we push Rhaenys to the side a little bit after that confrontation with Alicent, but she is not forgotten. One of the Cargill twins begins to have this sort of crisis of conscience and rescues Rhaenys from the catacombs and takes her through the secret tunnels of the Red Keep to try and escape, but everyone is just converging on the day after Aegon is found by Sir Criston and Aemon. They take him to his mother, and everyone gathers at the keep to witness Aegon's coronation, which works in Rhaenys' favor. All she wanted to escape was her dragon, and so the crowd begins to question if this was actually what Viserys wanted, as Otto announces Rhaenyra is not the heir anymore, and everyone eventually bows to new King Aegon Targaryen before melee suddenly and violently bursts through the ground of the keep, probably killing thousands and having a stare down with all the Hightowers as Alicent steps in front of her child to protect the new king, and Rhaenys armor-clad on top of her dragon, grants them mercy, and just goes away, probably to Dragonstone, because the war is about to start. The through line that I most appreciated in this episode was the dichotomy created between these two mothers, Alicent and Rhaenys, and how the pursuit of keeping both their families safe is eventually what tears them apart, and essentially is the last strike for the war to be waged between the Targaryen family, which is essentially what the entire series has been building to up until this point. I do wish we had gotten a moment to see Rhaenyra's reaction not only to her father's death, but to the news that the council has betrayed her, and her father's wishes of her being the queen after he passes away. Another thing that never fully clicks to me about this episode is that it feels the most plot driven. While it's being so singularly focused on this side of the family, it just feels like it's story to build to that climax. This entire show has thrived and it has displayed brilliant writing because it is so character driven, because the characters are so important. And while there are many interesting confrontations here that have characters come to this new place in their lives that feels fulfilling within their character arcs, there's just something about how the story is structured in the chase scene that is interesting, but it's very much story before character. And I always prefer this show when it's character ahead of story. I also don't like the sudden addition of the White Worm. It just feels so sudden. The last time we saw her, I believe, was episode 4, when it turned out Daemon was the big mastermind. He wanted Otto to know that information, so it just felt too sudden to bring her back to such an important role, and particularly with how the episode ended, it just feels like it didn't pay anything off with the information that we currently have. Next week may change things very much. I'm not ready to say this is my least favorite episode. The direction, production design, all the technical aspects, the writing is as consistent as the entire series has been. Just the focus and the fact that none of my favorite characters are present, it's just not up to my preference when it comes to the stories I want to follow in this show. But it's still a key piece of the chessboard when it comes to the entire context of this series. But before we dive into my final thoughts on the penultimate episode of House of the Dragon, I need you to start the conversation in the comments below. Let me know what you make of the series thus far. What are you expecting for the finale? And how do you rank all 9 episodes thus far? Anything and everything down there. If you're enjoying my weekly House of the Dragon reviews, if you're enjoying this specific House of the Dragon review, or if you just love movies and TV, this is the place to be. So consider clicking that subscribe button down there, and you won't miss any future conversations on your favorite movies and TV. Episode 9 of House of the Dragon can feel small scale to a fault, but its single focus still carries all the important narrative aspects and character arcs to what is an earned point of no return, converging all it's been building up through the season to a natural place of elevated stakes as conflict continues to brew in the now extended Targaryen Dynasty. Those are, however, only my thoughts on this week's House of the Dragon, so it's up to you to start the conversation and discussion in the comments below. Thank you so much for joining me. Only one more to talk about next week for the finale. Best prepare ourselves. Big thanks to my channel members for always supporting the channel, and until then, love each other and love the movies.